Widening guitars is something that makes them sound really cool and professional, and it gives your mixes that spice that just brings it to the next level. And I want to show you how to do this with acoustic guitar, but you can do it with electric as well, and to a certain extent bass, although I would kind of stay away from it if I were you. Bass guitar sounds better panned straight up the middle, dry, maybe a little bit of coursing depending on your track, but really for the most part, I like my bass mono. Anyway, here's a dry acoustic guitar track, unprocessed, and by itself in mono. It doesn't sound too bad, but it's boring. So luckily for me, technique number one, record in stereo. Record with two similar model microphones and mic them up in a stereo fashion. And I'm gonna pan these hard left and right just so you can hear them. And this is again the same exact thing, but two mics. An added benefit of hard panning guitars is it opens up space for the vocal. Now, one tip I would give you when doing any of these techniques is to always check for mono compatibility. And in Reaper, you can go down here and check that. In your DAW, you might have another option, but in Reaper, it's really easy. Just click on this polarity button on the master channel and then play back. Not too bad. On to the next technique. Now, with electric guitars, actually, I guess you can call it this as well. There's a technique called layering guitars. And basically, well, in this case, you only do two, but you record two good takes with acoustic guitar. And just like above, you hard pan them left and right. Now you can pan them wherever you want, really. But I'm doing this so you can really hear it and where it's the widest. Now again, I want to show you what it sounds like by itself. Take number one, pan straight up the middle. If you're curious, on the master channel I have Ozone 5 just so it's not overloading. Again, a good recording, but boring. So I'm going to hard pan this left. I'm going to solo the second take, hard pan that right, and let's listen to this. It sounds really cool. Again, it opens up space for the vocals, and it's something that you cannot artificially duplicate. Now, it's very important that when you record these takes, that the acoustic guitar player does not move their body so that the mic positioning doesn't change too much. Now, they're going to move a little bit, but if it's a drastic movement, it's just not going to sound right. And the second most important thing, and actually I would say this is the most important thing, you must record with a click track, because otherwise the timing's just going to get too off. And that's kind of the cool thing about this technique, is the timing's slightly off, but if it's really off, it'll sound really awful. Okay, last technique, and this involves, if you didn't record in stereo, or if you only recorded one good take, well, you don't have to live with boring sounding guitars. You can add effects. First thing I like to do, or try out, is reverb. This is a convolution reverb, Waves IRL. I like it. It sounds good. Let's check it out. Actually, let's check out the dry track first. And now with reverb. Now you'll notice the name of this is IRL Mono. The IRL series, or the IR series really, from Waves, you get mono, you get stereo, you get efficient stereo, and then you get mono to stereo plugins. Now what I like to do a lot of times is just use the mono because it leaves me with a lot of extra space in the mix. Now if I want to go to mono stereo in a more sparse mix, and basically all that means is there's less instruments. So in a dense mix, you have a lot more instruments. In a sparse mix, it might just be vocals and acoustic guitar. And in a sparse mix, you want a lot of these cool effects usually because it fills up the mix and it just sounds better. But again, it all comes down to what you want. Maybe you want a dry guitar sound. But I'm going for a more modern sound in this particular case, so I want some filling. Now, this plugin just came out. I just interviewed Michael Carnes, the creator of the Exponential Audio Company and the developer, and his new Phoenix Verb plugin sounds fantastic. It all, you know, I was telling him in the interview, I really think your algorithm plugin, which basically just means a bunch of math, sounds really, really good and might replace my convolution reverbs. So let's check this out. One setting I love to mess with is the wet and dry mix setting. Basically, dry means no effect at all, and wet means 100% effect. Last thing I like to do is use a delay plugin. Now, I say last, but a lot of times all I will use is delay because delay tends to fit in a dense mix better than a reverb. A lot of times I'll reserve reverb for vocals or maybe for a room mic replacement for the drums or a guitar amp or something, but delay can fit into a mix better and it still has that reverb effect. So Echo Boy is my plugin of choice. I fell in love with this plugin a few months ago and I love it. So we're using the studio tape style, and it's very important that feedback is set to a minimum. It's basically off at this point, all the way down. And I want time on because I don't have my tempo set for this song, so this note setting won't do anything for me. So I'm going to switch this to a minimum of 40 milliseconds. Now it's important that you do that, and I'll show you why. Let me do 20 milliseconds. And I'm going to make this, yeah, that's good. This is a single echo right now. I'm going to tweak this so that it's wide as anything, and this doesn't really, I'll mess with it if I need to. I'll just leave it where it is right now. Listen to this. Hold on, that's not what I was expecting. it's funny, I was just messing with this and it was getting the result that I was hoping for so you guys could hear it, but it sounds good actually right now. I wanted to show you that if you set your delay to a setting lesser than about 35 milliseconds, you get what's called comb filtering, where it really starts tearing up the way your track sounds. And for some reason, it's not doing that right now. I don't know why. There we go. Now it's starting to comb filter. You can hear it's got that like little weird, like it's sucking away frequencies. There we go. Now this could be used as an effect, a creative effect. But if you're going for something more natural, that's not what you want to hear. So we'll set this to, again, let's try 60 milliseconds. Alright, now I'm going to switch this to dual echo, which is actually the typical mode that I put this in, and I'm going to flip both of these to time. I'll set this one to 0. I just put mix all the way to wet. And echo 2 to 65. Feedback is at 0 still. That's what I want, width all the way to max. Now it sounds really wide. Now, if you don't have Echo Boy, I know it's kind of an expensive plugin. You can actually do a trick. It's really simple. You just copy. I'm doing a Control-C, and then paste onto another track. And now I'm going to turn my effects off and unmute this. And then I'm going to go up to Item and choose Nudge. And 60, actually I'll do 65. So I nudge that a little bit. And now I'm going to pan this hard left and then pan this one hard right. Now here's what it sounds like if it's not nudged. Nothing. And now if I nudge it a little bit too little, and bring it to mono. There's comb filtering. But again, if I do 65, still getting some comb filtering, but it's not as much. So, one last thing. I don't really want to go into it too much, but when you're messing with reverb, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put it on a send, like I have it on here. I'll show you what I got to do in order to make it a send. It's basically just a new track, and I'm going to hit my input output, and then go to receive track 5. And then what I can do is copy all my plugins onto my new track, and then disable the ones on the first track. And then what I want to do to all these is put them 100% wet. Because when you make a send, it should be 100% wet. There's no reason to make it dry because your dry track is already unaffected. The idea is that in order to blend these two together, you just adjust the faders. The fader position, to be more exact. I just want to show you again one last thing. I'm not even going to bother with the delay, but here we go. Another cool thing I like to do, which works better in dense mixes, instead of having something panned straight up or even far left and far right, because hey, in this song I have electric guitars that are panned hard left and right, and I also have drums that have stereo panning as well. Well, what I can do is go to, in Reaper version 4 they added this cool panning effect, which basically narrows the signal. I'm going to make that 0, so it's basically as narrow as possible, and then I'm going to pan it 13% to the right, and then I'm going to pan my dry track 13% to the left, and let's listen to it. That actually might be a little bit too wide, so I'll do 5. Basically, the idea is that you're not having it straight up the middle, and I'll even try 30 just for fun. Imagine this on, a stage or something, and you're getting a reflection off the opposite wall. It's kind of has that effect, and it opens up the mix a little bit more than if you had it everything panned straight up mono. Okay, so I'll make this 30. So there you go. I mean, it's a lot of options, but it makes your mix sound so much cooler than just This has been Adam for Real Home Recording.